as soon as I saw that hatch open, I was just like, oh, we getting some. Welcome back to the RNS podcast. This week, the R stands for Rando Calrissian and the S stands for Spando Calrissian. So we've been recording a lot tonight already, Rando. So we recorded episode 3 of the podcast a little less than 10 minutes ago. We went over everything that was going on in the Disney Plus investor call. All 38 projects that we are expecting to see from Lucasfilm and Marvel in the next 5 years or so. So now we need to talk about the other thing that happened this past weekend. Chapter 15 of The Mandalorian, titled The Believer.
Yes, thank you for that amazing introduction, Spando.
Yep.
I really enjoyed this one. It was less of a, obviously there's action, it's Mandalorian, but like it was so like morally ambiguous and made you think, and we haven't had that in Mandalorian yet, really. So
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah, it's been a little while. We're thinking this podcast is going to be a little bit shorter than the other episode reviews so far because while I'm not saying it was a bad episode, it just wasn't as mind-blowing as some of the other episodes have been this season. Not to say this wasn't a bad episode. This was a great episode, but this was definitely more of a philosophical episode.
Yes.
So, just something I want to ask you right off the bat before we dive into this episode. It was something I was thinking about like the whole episode, trying to tie it in somewhere. And maybe I'm an idiot for not knowing this. Who is the believer?
Ooh, I think it's supposed to be ambiguous. There are 3 people that I think it could fit on.
Really, 3?
Obviously,
I
think 3.
I was thinking 2, but I'm interested to hear your third then.
I think 3, because of other things that I've seen as well. Number 1, obviously, is Din Djarin. He could be the believer could be believing in a different system or believing so strongly in saving Grogu that he's able to cast aside his belief system just to save someone he loves.
Okay.
Of course, he takes his helmet off this episode. We get to see him abandon his creed, which was built up for a few episodes this season as well. Number 2, I think, was Mix Mayfield. Because, of course, he was the strongest one, the one that I originally believed was the believer, because he believed that the Empire's actions were just absolutely not great. Regardless of what the people in the Empire believed, they were not helping anyone. His belief system changed so much that he was willing to kill someone over it. He actually shot the Imperial officer. The third person I think could be the believer is actually the Imperial officer. He believed in the Empire so strongly that he thought the ethical issues that they had to run into that we saw like this episode were kind of not, it didn't matter as much because the Empire offered so much order. He said people don't really want freedom, they want order. And so he said the Empire offers that order, but just don't worry about the ethical stuff. It's just because people want order so badly. That the Empire really is the best force in the galaxy for this. And obviously we had these 3 people who all could be considered believers in their own right, all in at least 2 against 1 in a adverse of beliefs, which ended up getting the Imperial officer killed. So yeah, I think that they all could be considered the believer, which again leads into more of the philosophical kind of make your own decision about everything approach this episode took, where instead of it being obviously that's the Jedi or this is the tragedy, this is the believer could be different people. It's ambiguous. It's blurry for a reason.
That is pretty interesting. I was thinking along the same lines for Din and Mayfield, but I wasn't thinking that way about Val and Hess. That's very interesting as well.
Thank you, man. You always know my names.
Look, all right. Look, if you gave me like an A, B, or C answer options here, I probably would have gotten it. But thank you, Wikipedia. Wikipedia is always open. Like
the Wikipedia secret.
Yeah. Like, look, I usually take notes during the Mandalorian, like along my second watch because I watch it at 4:00 in the morning, and I watch it probably around 9 or 10 a.m. with my girlfriend. And the second time, I'll always like take some notes. But then while we're recording this, I always have the Wikipedia page for the episode pulled up and a separate Wikipedia tab pulled up because God knows I'm going to have to look up some ambiguous thing during these recordings. Which again is not I am not mad that I have to learn more Star Wars at all. So
it's so great.
So on the surface level, again, the only thing I predicted right about this episode was that it was written and directed by Rick Famuyiwa. I think
Good job.
last week, I think that we were like, Mayfeld's going to be in it for a little bit, and the rest of the episode is going to be assembling a team. Nope. The heist took the whole episode, which was pretty cool. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this. So, episode opens up at the Carthon chop fields, which we then see Migs Mayfeld doing some work there. Cara Dune walks up with a security droid, and she's just like, "Hey, come with me." And he's like, "Oh God, I'm going to be executed right now." So walks up, we see the Slave One with Fennec and newly painted Boba Fett armor, which gotta say,
it looks so good.
Gotta say, I'm a fan of the matte paint job. So
yep. And real quick, I think something I noticed on the armor. There is, of course, the Mythosaur logo sigil on his arm, but he had something new I didn't realize before on his chest plate. He had the sigil of Jaster Muriel on his armor.
Oh, really?
As we talked about last episode, the Mandalorian who helped raise Jango, which also, I got that wrong last episode. I said that that Jaster actually killed Jango's parents. No, Jaster was there when another Mandalorian killed Jango's parents, and Jaster took him in.
I see.
So sorry for getting that wrong. But yeah, so Jaster Muriel's sigil is on Boba's armor now as well.
Gotcha. So moving forward, Migs Mayfeld and Mix Joga. Oh man, I thought you were the other guy. The other guy, Din, walks out, and Mayfeld's just like, "Oh God, you're going to kill me. This is actually happening." So Din was just like, "Hey, got a job for you. We need you to help us track Moff Gideon's ship." So Mayfeld's just like, "Well, it's not as easy as you think." He's like, "We need to get the coordinates off of an Imperial terminal. There's one on Morak." So the gang saddles up, fly to Morak.
Which, by the way, being able to see the inside of Slave One and how it rotates for the ship to fly up. It was great.
I'm so happy just because I knew that's how it worked with the Lego set, because I had like the old OG Attack of the Clones Slave One. I had that old Lego set. I never had the Boba Fett one, just a really dang old Jango Fett Slave One from like 2002.
Yeah. And also something I also wanted to mention, the security droid we see that's like, "You have 3 seconds to comply." One, that's like a reference to RoboCop quote at some point. And also it's the same droids that we see from the ship in episode 6, the episode that Rick Famuyiwa also directed in chapter 6. Sorry. Yeah.
So the gang starts to make their plan, how they want to do this. Boba Fett's basically the getaway driver. Cara Dune is going to help them start their plan, and Fennec is going to back her up with a sniper rifle. And then Mayfeld mentions, he's like, "Hey, you got to scan your face to get into the terminal." So Cara Dune's just like, "I'm a rebel shock trooper. It'll deny me." Fennec Shand is like, "I'm, the the Empire's hunting me. That ain't gonna work." Then follows up, or Fett is just like, "Yeah, they know my face."
It's kind of obvious they know his face. They have like 1 million well on the way, of his face.
Yeah, they had billions of clones, and Boba Fett worked for the Empire. Definitely know him.
Oh yeah.
Mayfeld is just like, he's like, "Well, I'm ex-Empire. I can easily do it. I'm just gonna need backup." So Din is just like, "I guess I'll go." Mayfeld follows up with, "Well, you're wearing Mandalorian armor. Like, I'm not gonna, like, I'm a smooth talker. I'm not gonna be able to explain that." So we see Din compromise his morals, or compromise, I don't know, his code of honor here, and it's just like, okay, I guess I'm going Buckethead. So Cara begins to break them into the facility by helping steal a Juggernaut tank full of Rhydonium, which, again, as far as I'm aware, Rhydonium is another Filoni creation. He created it back on the Clone Wars in Season 5, I want to say episode 12, Missing in Action with Gregor. It was the Gregor episode that had Rhydonium. So
yes, Rhydonium is a very efficient but very highly sensitive fuel, as we see in this episode, created by Filoni. The only thing that I was kind of sad we didn't see about Rhydonium is that in both Clone Wars and Rebels, when it explodes, it blows up in rainbow. Here, it just kind of blew up.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, it wasn't rainbow like it was in the animations.
Pretty
but
rainbows.
Yeah, it was still great. Like, they said Rhydonium, and I was like, Rhydonium. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you think here? This is one of the first times we see Din compromise his creed.
Yeah, now Din said, "Oh, I'll go," and I'm like, "We're gonna see him take his helmet off now." But no, he just he hopped into a bucket. But I thought it was
Bucket?
interesting, and of course, we hear Mayfeld begin to talk about, well, is your creed don't take the Mando helmet off, or is it don't show your face? What is it? Um,
Yeah. So,
so he just breaks down all of these rules that we already had assumed, like Empire's bad, Republic is good, Mando can't take his helmet off. Like
hmm
none of these rules that we thought of are actually really like super solid anymore.
yeah. So going into that, into the next scene, we see Mayfeld begin to drive the Juggernaut. Din sitting co-pilot. He's wearing the helmet, and Mayfeld's like, "No, I'm going to take mine off, whatever." So Mayfeld brings up some things for us to think about. For example, Mayfeld's just like, well, what's the difference? Someone's got to rule someone. If you're from Alderaan, you believe one thing. If you're from Mandalore, you believe another thing. And at the end of the day, both planets or people are basically destroyed. So at the end of the day, what's the difference? I was in the Empire. And then Mayfeld
Hmm.
is just like, well, what's the difference between you and I? You and I, when the going gets tough, we do what we have to. Din's like, of course, no, we're not anything like. He's like, well, you ditched your armor to put on some stormtrooper armor,
Yep.
and also exactly what you mentioned. It's just like, are Mandalorians not allowed to take their helmet off, or they're not allowed to show their face? What's the difference? Because you're breaking one rule here if that's the rule.
Hmm.
So then we move on to pirate attack, and this was something you
Yes.
mentioned before, where in any other setting, these pirates were probably good people because,
Hmm.
well, all right, pirates being good people, that it's
Well, okay. Yeah, in
yeah,
any other setting, it's someone attacking the Empire, which is what we've done
right,
forever. That's all we do is we're on the rebellion side, we attack the Empire.
exactly.
But in this instance, they are masquerading as the Empire, so they have to do what the Empire wants and kill the pirates so that they
Mhm.
don't die themselves.
And
Yeah,
the
it's
pirates weren't doing pirate like things like Hondo would do. They're not stealing the Rhydonium. They're probably natives of that world, and they're destroying the fuel.
they're just trying to send a message for the Empire to stop what they're doing. They're not trying
hmm
to steal from the Empire, they're just trying to make it stop.
And the moment where we really think about it, after this amazing action sequence, which has some parallels to season 1, episode 2, The Child, with Din facing the Mudhorn, there's some very similar shots in there that I saw on Twitter earlier. But we realize how twisted and backwards the scene is when the Empire shows up. You kind of want to cheer. The Ties come in to take out the pirates, and a squad of stormtroopers come running out, and they're like, "All right, we're gonna help you." And yeah, that's when you realize that, man, this is kind
Like
of
this,
twisted.
that was the biggest moment where I was like, "This is weird. This is backwards. This is
hmm
crazy." Because the music that plays is triumphant. It's like, yes, they're saved, but the music also has a hint of, "Wait, this is weird. This is wrong,"
hmm
because the Empire is helping them. We are rejoicing. The music is positive because the Empire saved them. When they get back, as they pull in, all the stormtroopers are just cheering. They're just regular people.
hmm
They're just people who are pulled into this for one reason or another, and they're just trying to have, just trying to hang out. Like, oh man, we got more fuel. We can keep doing what we want, what we need to do. Like, they're all just people on both sides. They're all just doing what they think is right, and it's something that we've never really addressed in Star Wars before. Is the Empire is not an absolute evil. The Republic is not an absolute good. Both sides have heroes and villains throughout.
hmm Moving on from this scene is when we start to get into the what I like to call Inglorious Bastards section of this episode. Uh,
Yeah.
so they park the Juggernaut, and they're getting congratulated, and Mayfeld's just like, all right, the computer terminal is in the officer's mess. So they're about to walk into the room, and they notice, and Mayfeld immediately turns around and walks out. And Din's like, yo, what's going on? He's just like, there's an officer in there that I served under, Fallon Hess. New Imperial officer we haven't seen in canon before, as far as I'm aware. And
Yeah.
Din's just like, all right, so what's the problem? Like, is he gonna recognize you? Mayfeld's like, probably not, but we don't want to take the chance if we're gonna do this quiet. And Mayfeld is also like freaking out. He's like, no, the op's blown. Like, we gotta go. We gotta go. And Din's just like, no, we didn't come this far to turn around. So Din's just like, I'll do it. I'll be in the system. And Mayfeld's just like, once you're in the system, you're in there for good. So probably going to see that come back to haunt Din in the future. But
Yeah.
so Din's just like, no, I'll do it. So he goes into the mess hall or the officer quarters. He takes his helmet off for the second time in the show and scans into the computer. He scans in. He's about to walk out, and Valen Hess stops him. So, Din is incredibly awkward. So Mayfeld comes in and says he's just like, oh, he doesn't hear good. So Valen's just like, all right, we're gonna sit down and have a drink. And
Yeah, at that moment, Mayfeld references a battle that Lando mentioned in episode 6, by the way.
That's true.
Yeah, when Lando, Lando was like, pulled this thing at Battle of Tanab. He was like, yeah, I lost his hearing at Battle of Tanab.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, it was mentioned to me that Din doesn't move his head normally.
Right.
Whenever anything happens, he doesn't use peripheral vision because he's never used to having it. So he just moves his entire head like a robot.
Yeah, no, I noticed that during the episode, and a lot of people were talking about it. I was about to mention it, where like, you don't think it's that hard to act as someone that's wearing a helmet all the time, a suit of armor that doesn't have a lot of emotional scenes. So Pedro Pascal brings it all in the scene with the nonverbal communication, the awkwardness. This is a phenomenal scene. Meanwhile, Bill Burr also delivering a phenomenal scene. You can see as the scene breaks down, or as the scene,
you can see him losing it. You can see him just losing his cool.
And when Bill Burr's character was first shown in season 1 in the Prisoner episode, I was like, he's all right. Yeah, whatever. But this one, I was just like, this is really good. So the way the scene plays out is that Mayfeld immediately brings up Operation Cinder. So,
oh man, he said Operation Cinder, and I was like, "What? Operation Cinder is in a movie or in a TV show now. Cool, it's not just a video game thing."
Well, I know you hadn't read a lot of the books, but yeah, Operation Cinder was in Battlefront. Operation Cinder is a major thing in many of the other books. Like, it's brought up a lot. So yeah, you're right. I am glad it has made the jump to TV. And Valen Hess is just like, oh yeah, I killed a bunch of my own men, but at the end of the day, hail to the Empire. And then I'm obviously paraphrasing an amazing scene, but
he's mentioned just like, oh yeah, it was fine. I'm sure all the people you killed, all of my friends were totally fine with it, and just kind of going into the hypocrisy of the Empire, wanting to save people and have order, but also murdering so many civilians and other people who didn't need to die, just for what.
For at the end of the day, the Empire to lose. And Valen has mentioned something that hasn't really been talked about. I wonder if this is something that's going to come up in Rangers of the New Republic or whatever, that the Empire is basically like mining that Rhydonium to do Cinder again. So it kind of makes me wonder if that's going to be a plot point in a future show. But anyways, we see Mayfeld break down and then just shoot Valen Hess right in the chest. We saw that coming. So from there, we have an amazing action sequence, which firstly begins with Mayfeld saying, I did what I had to do, and you did what you had to do. I didn't see your face. Like, basically covering for Din. So, they have this awesome Jason Bourne-esque action sequence where they're escaping the compound. They get to the roof. Slave One comes and picks them up. And the moment I've been waiting for since I saw Slave One show up in the tragedy, we get the seismic charges.
Because I had heard that Boba at some point replaced them, but I saw it fall out of I saw the door open. I'm like, no, it's just a seismic charge, and then falls down. All sound goes away until it just destroys both TIE fighters, and it was just great.
As soon as I saw that hatch open, I was just like, oh, we getting some like, oh yeah, we're getting the seismic charge, aka the best soundbite in all of Star Wars. So that happens. So then something else happens that I'm very happy did, where basically the Slave One lands and Din and Kara are basically doing exactly what I thought they would do, where they're just like, oh man, such a shame that Mayfeld died. Oh gosh, we're real torn up about him. And Mayfeld just kind of goes running off. It's also just like, it's one of those moments that happens in TV and movies so often where a character gets to go free and you're just like, where are they going? Like, he's in a jungle. Like, is he going back to the village? And
that's what I was thinking. Like, where are you going? Like, what?
Yeah, is he just going to retire on Morak, where Empire is just hiding out, and also anybody that saw him driving the tank, he had his helmet off, so they're just going to be like, "Hey, you're one of those Imperial guys, aren't you? I just murder him,
Yeah.
spit roast him, and eat him. But
Tasty Mayfield.
yeah. So I'm happy. I'm happy that they saw Mayfield go, so that we could just see him again pop up at some point.
Something I forgot to mention earlier during the scene with the pirates. Two things actually. One, have we ever seen a Star Wars gun jam before or be like run out? Because I think that's the first time we've ever seen a gun that fires energy blasts not work.
That's a fair point. Yeah, ran out of ammo. I think we've seen it in Clone Wars. In Clone Wars Season 1, Episode 16, The Hidden Enemy, Cody takes basically the ammo cartridge out of Slick's gun, and Slick tries to shoot, and he's just like, uh-oh. But yeah, I mean, you're right. We very rarely see a blaster, not have ammo in it or charges in it.
Yeah, we've never seen a cannon slug thrower, as they're called in Star Wars, like a normal, regular, like in real life gun. Because those things obviously will run out of ammo, but like energy charges, you don't know exactly how long it lasts.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing was the original concept art for that scene. Actually, instead of having the alien pirates, originally had Poe Dameron doing that. But of course, this is a little too early for Poe to be active.
Oh yeah, no, Poe would have been a kid.
Oh yeah, but I thought it was funny that the original concept art was like, let's just throw Poe on here and have him destroy these tankers.
Yeah. So the scene or the episode ends with a little bit of Gideon, but mostly Din here, where he leaves Gideon a message saying like he means more to me than you ever could imagine.
More or less, besides a few individual words changing for the situation. Din's speech was exactly the same as Gideon's that we heard in episode 7 of last season.
Yeah, it was
word for word almost.
It was phenomenal, and that's basically how the episode ends. So again, this episode's probably going to be a little bit shorter than what I'm looking at right now, and this was a fantastic bridge into the final episode of the season. So
yeah, it's great setup.
Going back to the Jedi, which the episode happened and we recorded our first podcast. We were predicting that we would have a filler or a couple filler episodes, and the end of the season or something like that would be Tython. Yeah, and Gideon tracks the child and Din to Tython and goes after the kid, and that's when Gideon and Din fights. So we were sort of right, but that
a little bit, but like some of it
wrong
happened early. Yeah. We predicted the fact that they would track Grogu to Tython and Grogu would be taken. We predicted that correctly, just we predicted it too late. It happened at the very next episode. We were thinking that they would continue their pattern of like story, filler, story, filler, story. We would thought it would be filler again, but it was just even more story, and it's been story since. So let me ask you this time. Now, who do you think will be on Team Mando next episode?
Oh goodness. I think the main four that we had in this episode. And look, I've said it every episode. I want Rex and Sabine to show up. Also, because I'm rewatching Rebels right now, and I'm in season 4, so Sabine's got Darksaber. It's really awesome. I still really want her to show up. At this point, it's looking like Sabine and Rex aren't gonna show up, which makes me sad. But that's okay. I'm still going with the core 4. I wanna say Grief Karg is gonna show up. Because they just dropped Mayfield off on Morak. I don't think he's coming.
No, Mayfield won't be there. No, I agree. The core 4 as well. Just for clarification, that's Mando, Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, and Cara Dune.
That's an incredible core 4 that I didn't think we'd have ever actually say. But I'm still saying it's really tough to figure out who else is going to be part of this group, because I don't want Din to go into it with just the 4 of them, because I think they're going to need more than just those few. But at this point, I don't know who else they're picking up. Is he going to call Bo?
So, yeah. My theory is that they will go with just the 4 of them, but halfway through, Star Wars style, we'll suddenly see Bo-Katan hop in and help them out. Because I don't think they would set up, unless that was a setup for Rangers of the New Republic as well, or in Ahsoka, the setup of Bo-Katan going to find the Darksaber as well. I don't think they would set that up to not see it happen in the show with the person who currently has the Darksaber. So I think that we'll see Bo-Katan suddenly appear while they're going through the light cruiser.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, that's about my prediction. It's just the main 5 that we just mentioned, but with Bo-Katan showing up late. Maybe the Jedi that was called will appear. I feel like they probably will, because that'd be a weird storyline to leave for next season.
If, the last shot isn't involving Thrawn, maybe the season ends with a tease of who the Jedi is that showed up instead of Thrawn being in this season finale at all. I could see that as a possibility too.
That's kind of how my prediction goes now, because I don't think we'll see Thrawn anymore, considering the Ahsoka show was just confirmed to be happening.
I really hope to God that the last shot of the season isn't the boots of some Jedi walking in. Like, I want to know who this Jedi is that's showing up.
Oh, yeah.
Because, then we'll have to wait, like, literally a year and a week until we find out. So, we also, all that we know from a behind-the-scenes standpoint for this final episode is that it was written by Jon Favreau. We don't know who's directing it.
I would assume that Favreau's probably directing.
Yeah.
Because it's the season finale.
Yeah. Well, last season finale, he let Taika Waititi direct it.
Ooh, that's right. Did Taika direct anything this season?
No, he was busy. He's been busy with Thor 4 and a bunch of other stuff.
And writing the Star Wars film,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Basically, most of the directors that didn't come back this season are already tied down to something else in Lucasfilm. Like,
Chow and Waititi specifically.
Yeah. I feel like there's one other director that didn't return from last season, but I can't remember. But
no, the one that I was thinking of was Bryce Dallas Howard, but she directed episode 3 of this season.
Right, she did. And we also had, just like last season, Rick Famuyiwa directed 2 episodes. Filoni got an episode. Favreau's had an episode. And so far, the 2 new directors that we knew going into the season have already directed. So Peyton Reed and Robert Rodriguez. So I'm thinking Favreau's directing this last one. Or, maybe Bryce Dallas Howard. I think she's my runner-up, because
her too.
The 2 episodes she's done so far have gone really well. And she's done some really good fight sequences, so maybe we'll see that here. Or Rodriguez again, because I think they brought in Rodriguez for the tragedy just because, hey, here's a big action set piece. Have fun, dude.
Yeah, that too.
So, all right. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Because the next time we're recording, we'll know the ending.
Is there anything else? Oh, I wanted to mention that the way that Din contacts Gideon at the very end, of course, it is the exact same words as we mentioned. But also, to me, it evoked the same style of communication between Republic generals to separatists, like we saw in Clone Wars. It might just be this, the fact that it's a hologram on a table, but still, it was pretty cool. It evoked like full-on Clone Wars level communications between 2 big forces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and they're basically getting in each other's faces. Like, we haven't seen Din like this before. Din is usually waiting for the fight, but now I think this may be one of the first few times he's actually bringing the fight to someone. He's not being invoked into a fight. He's just like, no, I'm pissed. I'm coming for you.
Oh, yeah.
So.
But yeah, that's it. Just, this episode was a lot more philosophical, a lot more thought-provoking, blurry in terms of its morality and message. And I think that's a great way to begin setting up. Of course, we're expecting some big old action-y final episode. But, we got to stop and think about the ethics behind what we're seeing. This is a great episode for it to happen, because this episode, like we were saying, could technically have happened in 20 minutes with just them getting Mayfeld out and breaking him out, if the story was written differently. So I think it was a great episode as a kind of, the penultimate episode where it's cool. Well, going into this last episode, think about what we're seeing. Like, really actually dig into it more than just, big shiny man, metal helmet, shoot dude.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Big shiny metal man didn't have big shiny metal most of the episode.
Yeah.
So
big shiny metal man want tiny green baby.
Yeah. So anyways, everyone, thank you all for tuning into this episode of the RNS podcast. You were listening to Rando Calrissian and Spando Calrissian. And next time we record, we'll know how this ends. So
all right.
We'll talk to you all later. Everyone have a good evening. And
the grass is always greener on Alderaan, I think. Pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're from Alderaan or Mandalore. You don't exist anymore. Okay, bye.
Yeah. See ya.